Hello, my friends, and welcome to live coverage of GP Birmingham. What a pleasure it is to welcome you down to the feature match area for the first time today. My name's Riley Knight, and I've got the great pleasure to be joined by the Pro Tour champion, Simon Goertzen. Simon, you've made the trip over from Trieste. You're up and about, ready to chuck some punches around in the booth, and it's a great pleasure to have you along this weekend. We're opening up our tournament with a mainstay of the English pro scene here, Mark Wraith. He was around the Pro Tour throughout the last couple of years, whatever else. This guy is here, ready to get underway in modern as well. And on our back tables as well, Simon, we've got a nice little sort of sampling platter from the United Kingdom. We've got the World Magic Cup champion of Scotland. We've also got the Welsh national champion, Pip Griffith. He'll be up and about before very much longer. But right now, it's Sarah Pedro and Mark Wraith. We'll see how these two can navigate the first round here. Looks like Sarah Pedro might be on the old Tronsky here. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this deck heading into the tournament, Simon?
I was expecting quite a lot of Eldrazi Tron, actually, because it's a deck that's relatively straightforward. You know what to do, and it's just it's a new level of unfairness if you actually have the 7 mana on turn 3. I was expecting less of the traditional Tron decks, to be honest.
Look at this, Mark Wraith. He's after having played one of the best cards in modern, the best cards in the game, really. It is, of course, Celestial Colonnade, and he's not going to be happy, Simon Goertzen, to see his opponent opening up with these Tron pieces because, I mean, blue-based control, a nightmare matchup, the Tron matchup here.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Gabriel Nassif, who was streaming Standard the last couple of days, and he was trying to win with control decks in Standard and just losing to red over and over again. And this is kind of the feeling that you have when you bring blue-white control to a modern tournament, and you see the Urza's Tower or Urza's Mine, Urza's Power Plant on turn 1.
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling when you're opening up with a tapped Celestial Colonnade here, and Mark Wraith certainly has his work cut out from here. Blue-white control that might pick for the tournament here. I think this deck is supremely well positioned. I've written about it throughout the week as well. I really think that this deck has what it takes, but when your round 1 matchup is against a deck that is just going to absolutely tear you limb from limb. I mean, Mark Wraith, he's got the tools he needs. However, Spreading Seas, Ghost Quarter, these are ways to combat the Tron deck. But
especially the Spreading Seas, because Ghost Quarter is ultimately a losing battle. With the Spreading Seas, at least you're delaying the Tron. The real question is, can Mark put any kind of pressure before these big cards come down anyway?
So Ancient Stirrings now off the back of that Chromatic Sphere. That'll help Pedro gain the tools she needs to move forward here. As Mark Wraith, look at him, scratching his forehead. He knows he's got his work cut out. From Simon Goertzen, you said one of the ways that the blue-white deck can get up and about is by pressuring their Tron opponents. Traditionally, blue-white control doesn't have ways for early pressure.
No, especially in game 1. It's a really classical control deck, and a Celestial Colonnade itself will not raise a Tron deck for sure, because there will be Wormcall engines and Karns and all those sweet things. No, but for example, after sideboarding, if you have a few, I don't know, Vendilion clicks, then we will see Mark just try to beat down with everything he has, because ultimately he's playing a control deck that will lose most of the late games in this matchup.
Glacial Fortress coming down from Mark Wraith. No issues with his mana so far. And we're going to see what looks like a Serum Visions. His hand, half of Mark's hand is upside down, half it's the right way up. He's drawing a card, he's scrying. A little bit of disorganization here as he draws a Snapcaster Mage. Probably the best card in Modern, I would say.
I think you're a bit biased towards blue.
I honestly think Snapcaster Mage is the best card in Modern. I'm not denying that statement you made, but I really do think it is.
There's a good argument for it.
Both cards going below decks here for Wraith now. Pedro's sitting pretty. She's obviously able to crack that Expedition map and get the final Tron piece after her first tower was knocked out by the Spreading Seas. Wall of Omen's going to cycle as well, so Wraith is getting through his deck, but there's no silver bullet here, Simon.
No, exactly. I was looking at his hand, and Path to Exile, even flashing back Path to Exile, is not gonna win you the game. It's good against these Wormcall engines, but then what do you do when Karn starts eating your permanents? I think Mark's Cryptic Command might just be too late.
And Natural Tron here for Pedro. They've always got it, and she has an absolute wealth of options in hand. I can see Wormcoil Engine, Ugin as well could come down, given the fact that we do have that 4th land in the form of Spreading Seas. So She's really just completely going to take over here. But it is going to be Khan, the traditional option here. And Mark Wraith, you can see that he knows that his back is against the wall here. Immediately going to eat up that Celestial Colonnade. That's smart play from Pedro there. That's exiled Mark, mate. It's going to be underneath Khan if we ever get to restart the game.
Oh, quite relevant.
Very relevant indeed. We could see the old game restart here, but I don't think so. I think Pedro's going to run away with this one here as Wraith down to 2 lands with a lonely Wall of Omens, and he draws a supreme verdict here. Next turn, Pedro can play her Ugin. There's also Wormcoil Engine that can be brought to bear.
And that Karn is still not dealt with.
That's also very true. That's also very true. It's not just a 7-mana term of Vindicate here. Sanctum of Ugin off the top here. So Pedro firing on all cylinders. She's got to be very happy about this. This is exactly what you want to see as a Tron player. You sit down against a slow, dirtly deck. They're fiddly farting around with lands and cantrips, whatever else, and you can just nug them with turn 3 Tron.
I would assume that, let's say, every second non-land card that Mark draws is just dead in this matchup.
Yeah.
So or virtually dead.
Mm-hmm.
Every Path to Exile, every Supreme Verdict you draw.
I mean, even cards like Mana Leak are just embarrassing.
At least they could do something in the early game.
That is true.
But we are well. Basically, one deck is still in the early game. The other one is in the late game. So that's.
Ugin the Spirit Dragon coming down. Going to chuck around some Ghost Fire if Pedro gets her way here. Wraith examining the card carefully. Can't even cast this Cryptic Command here. Doesn't have any response at all. No. Just has to let it resolve. And that also means the Sanctum of Ugin's going to get triggered as well. A huge flavor victory here for Pedro. Going to have those cards exiled underneath Khan just for the sake of clarity there. Always keeping the viewer first, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, the Path to Exile will not come back, so.
No. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger being found inside that Sanctum of Ugin. That's not the biggest flavor win here, but all the same, Pedro's very happy about the position she's in.
But it's a nice curve, 7 into 8 into 10 is where you want to be.
Exactly, it works out very nicely. That Expedition map's still threatening to go and snag another 3 mana here for the Tron player. And really, this game all but over. Wraith, really, without too much more to do than scoop him up, I would say. There's not going to be any kind of miraculous comeback from this point onwards.
It's actually interesting how the Karn works out. If Mark tries to hold open Cryptic Command, then the Karn is threatening once again to exile one of his lands. So then he's already forced to use it, and it's just not working out for Mark.
The Spirit Dragon goes downstairs, knocks out that Spreading Seas in addition to the Wall of Omens. So Pedro freeing up some of her mana here.
And that's her way of making sure that she can cast Ulamog next turn.
Snapcaster Mage comes down for no value. The 3rd Glacial Fortress. Interesting mana base here put together by Mark Wraith. We often only see 1, maybe 2 Glacial Fortresses. He's gone for, obviously, at least 3. Be very curious to see this deck list as well. The blue-white deck is something that, obviously, with a huge amount of personal bias, has really impressed me, Simon. But it's in a good spot, I think, heading into this weekend.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm willing to be proven wrong about that. I'm sure this match will not do much to change my mind about it.
Yeah. I think that's probably a fair assessment.
It is a deck where you do have more extreme matchups than with a lot of the other decks.
Okay.
So I think with blue-white control you have more matchups that gravitate towards easy wins and easy losses, really, really difficult matchups like this one.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if I take Grixis Death Shadow to a tournament, there aren't these kind of auto wins or auto losses.
I think that's a great point. Blue-white control deck has some very, very strong matchups and some very, very questionable ones, I suppose you could say. It's a much swingier deck, but I think that its percentage points recently have really improved because of Gideon of the Trials.
Mm-hmm.
I think this card does exactly what the deck needs. It just slows down the game. It gives you extra breathing room, and also just like Celestial Colonnade is a win condition that's sort of snuck in with the mana base. Gideon of the Trials is also this sort of like healing salve, sort of pressure valve type effect that also can win you the game if you play it on turn 1 million, and I think that's really important. It's a really important addition to the deck. Now, Mark Wraith, he's battling hard here against Sarah Pedro on Tron, but at this stage, there isn't much the blue-white player can do against. They're not dead in the water in this matchup, but they've got to have early interaction, they've got to have counter spells, and they've got to be able to bring this interaction to bear in the forms of Ghost Quarter and, as you say, critically, Spreading Seas. This hasn't happened.
They mostly have to hope that the Tron players' draw is much worse than we've seen here. We actually saw this interaction where Mark was floating a blue to represent Cryptic Command, and then Pedro just goes into combat and says, what do you want to do?
And Ulamog, hungry boy that he is, comes down, eats up the permanents on Wraith's side of the board. He was left with a lonely single planes at the end of that game, so an almost flawless victory from Sarah Pedro here. She's done very, very well to, take out a game that I think by rights was hers in the fact that she's playing an excellent deck, but all the same. Mark Wraith now with the opportunity to try to equalise, and Pedro, of course, will be doing her best to stay on top of things as well. Let's have a look at what some of these players might be sideboarding here. I can see some extra counter spells. Looks like we've got Negates, Dispels, Celestial Purge, Geist of Saint Trapped as a way to put some pressure on as well, and an Elspeth Sun's Champion hanging out in Mark Wraith's hand. What are your thoughts on some of these sideboarding options here, Simon?
Not what I was hoping for, because I would be much happier with just more creatures on Mark's side. You cannot really play the long game. It's how is it going to end? How are you going to win? Okay, maybe if you draw 3 Spreading Seas, that's definitely a way to win. But if you remember the times of Blood Moon being very popular, a lot of slow decks would try to Blood Moon their Tron opponents, and then they would just naturally reach 7, 8, 9 mana, and they would lose anyway. And this is somehow the storyline here, and you see so many dead cards.
You can see some of those cards coming out. I saw Wraith pluck out a Path to Exile, also taking out Serum Visions, which I find quite interesting. Mana Leaks look like they're staying in as well, so Wraith with an interesting approach to sideboarding. Pedro seems to be going a little bit deeper with her sideboarding plans. The Wraith just with the 5 cards that he's interested in swapping out.
It looks like Pedro is almost taking the full 15. She's by the way, black-green Tron. We saw the Fatal Push of Ancient Stirrings, but I think she operated completely with only colorless lands.
Yeah, we didn't see any of those. As we see things, like Collective Brutality, that's a nice one as well. Seal of Primordium as well. Mark Wraith bringing in Stony Silences.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Stony Silence is one of the best way to catch the Tron deck off guard. If especially on the play, if you play Stony Silence on 2, all the expedition maps are not going to be fetching lands. And well, the Tron deck, sometimes they just have it, but it does rely on
just sometimes
it does rely on expedition maps and these other filtering artifacts to find what they need.
And we've seen also things like Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, those sorts of things as well. Stony Silence hoses them incidentally as well, which is a nice one. And again, it's not the game swinging huge earth shattering change that it is against, say, Affinity, but Stony Silence still has a fair bit of utility. Now I saw a Geist of Saint Traft in Mark Wraith's sideboard. You've got to imagine that's coming in.
I didn't see him sideboarding it. I think he's continuing to play for the long game. Jeez. Like I said during game 1, I interpret this matchup as being so unfavorable that I would just go all out and say, especially now I'm on the play, I want to maximize my chances of just winning with a 6 damage 3 drop.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, perplexing to me that you wouldn't bring this card in, although Mark Wraith, obviously with some kind of plan. I mean, he would have been prepared for this matchup. He would know that it's coming. This is not an unknown. This is not a fringe deck, Tron. Interesting flavour here. We'll have to explore this more from Sarah Pedro, because obviously the black is an interesting addition to... We see green, we see Ancient Stirrings, that sort of stuff, very normal. In traditionally green-red has been the pairing, but green-black opens some interesting options. Fatal Push, Collective Brutality.
Fatal Push is very nice because it synergizes with the Chromatic Star and Sphere.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So you get a 1 mana destroy target creature with converted mana cost 4 or less, which in Modern, there's Tassigor, there's Gurmak Angler, but 4 mana is a lot.
Well, this is actually another interesting texture of the format that we're going to have to explore here, because many of the decks that have found success recently, Simon, have been filled with creatures that are Fatal Push proof. We see Reality Smasher in Eldrazi Tron. We see Hollow One in this Hollow One deck that people are beginning to experiment with. Prime Time, obviously, in Titan Shift. And then, as you're mentioning, these Delve creatures as well. And these decks have really enjoyed a lot of success recently in Modern, maybe because of their resilience against this ubiquitous black removal spell.
Absolutely. This has really changed the format on a more subtle level. I noticed this in particular when playing, for example, Abzan or Jund Death Shadow against Grixis Death Shadow. You're playing almost the same decks. There's a bit of differences, but in the end, you're the one that plays creatures that all die to Fatal Push, and they play Tassigers and Gurmag Anglers. It's really not a fair fight.
Well, speaking of not a fair fight, Tron versus blue-white control here. Pedro looks to have a pretty decent hand, good mix of lands and spells, 2 different Tron pieces hanging out in there, in addition to a Collective Brutality. Mark Wraith rubbing the back of his neck. Maybe he doesn't have such a good hand.
Yeah, because there is a Supreme Verdict in it.
Mana Leak as well.
I don't understand why you would want to have a Wrath against Eldrazi Tron. I can understand it, but against in particular against Eldrazi Tron, I think his matchup is actually fine. He has all this removal, all the spot removal actually does something. He can maybe Detention Sphere, Reality Smasher, but in this matchup, what are you going to Wrath away? Wormcall Engine? That's probably not even in the deck anymore.
No, that's the thing. I mean, it's very bad against Path to Exile, but it's very good against these other spells like Supreme Verdict. Here we see Pedro with 2 Tron pieces and, of course, the Expedition map. So she's right on target here. Wraith going searching for a Hallowed Fountain, I would imagine. Yes, indeed. There it is. Going to shuffle up and see what his turn 3 draw can give him. But his hand doesn't look too impressive. A Mana Leak is not going to be of too much use moving forward. Pedro is going to have the mana to play around it, you would think.
Oh, maybe if Pedro just drops Karn on turn 3.
Just jams. We could see that answer here. Well, a Negate is the draw for Mark Wraith. That's better stuff from Mark Wraith here. A card that I was very surprised not to see in his sideboard is Ceremonious Rejection, Simon. This card, I think, is at an all-time high. If you're a blue deck and you're not playing it, I think it's a mistake.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Ceremonious Rejection, to put things in, put it in context here. I mean, obviously huge against cards like Karn, against cards like Ugin, whatever else. But think about this: Affinity. It's a 1-mana hard counter against Affinity, and also it randomly hosts Eldrazi Tron as well of these other decks. Ceremonious Rejection is a card that every blue deck should be playing 2 copies of, and it's 75.
Especially if you're a Snapcaster deck. Which you
should also be if you're playing blue. Yes, absolutely. Blooming Marsh has been pulled out for Sarah Pedro here. That's very interesting. Is she holding the 3rd Tron piece already?
I think she's expecting to play a longer game, and she wants to make sure that she also has access to her sideboard cards.
That's super interesting.
Now, this Collective Brutality is not. She didn't bring it in because it's a matchup breaker. She brought it in because you can check if the coast is clear, and it will trade for a Negate or a Mana Leak. And especially talking about Mana Leak, you can even play a game where you just say, look, I know you might have up to 4 Mana Leaks in your deck. I will not play anything into Mana Leak.
Yeah.
Or only cards I'm willing to lose, basically.
Ancient Stirrings, the play for Pedro. And that is the natural weakness, the built-in weakness of Mana Leak. That is that, if you are playing against a Scape Shift player, if you are playing against someone who is expecting and is ready to play around the Mana Leak, as we see it deployed now here, it's easy to do so. You wait the extra couple of turns, you find it, because again, blue-white control is not putting you under pressure.
No, but this is the whole point, right? You're playing Mana Leak because delaying the game is exactly what you want. You're basically saying, if you wait until your spells go under Mana Leak, I'm winning because my deck is better set up for the late game.
Spreading Seas now.
Interesting choice not to take the tower there.
Highly unorthodox here. And a fresh Tron piece drawn for Sarah Pedro. Looks like Urza's Mine. Or is it a power plant?
I thought it was a power plant. But either way,
plant.
it's not completing the Tron because of the Spreading Seas.
So Wraith now with Negate up has the option to continue to disrupt Pedro's plan, and we see now Collective Brutality. Looks like it's going to be the Duress type mode here.
No, that's the only reason it's being brought in. But let's be honest here. Mark is holding 2 Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
This is the the best way to lose this this matchup.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the choices that Mark Wraith made with some of his sideboarding decisions, if indeed that Ghost of St. Trath stayed in the board, as you said. And we see the negate stripped out of Mark Wraith's hand. The coast is now clear for Sarah Pedro to get up and about.
But this was also a strategic mistake. You have to negate the collective brutality because the only thing you've now gained is you've not used your 2 mana, and you've revealed your hand to your opponent.
So what you're saying here, Simon, is that Sarah is always taking the negate.
Yes.
Every time. Every time she's taking it. So if that's the case and you're sitting here with with this negate in hand and other cards, then you're losing the negate anyway. You protect the information.
Because you could be holding 3 negates, right? But now Pedro knows that your hand is as bad as it gets.
Spreading Seas now is also going to knock out that power plant here. And so Sarah Pedro is still in a position where she knows the entire contents of Mark Wraith's grip, and this is going to be critical moving forward.
Except for the 1 card drawn of
that's true.
Spreading Seas.
Excuse me, which I think was a Celestial Colonnade. Pedro now with the Forest. So a slower start from her, although I would say she's still in an excellent position here.
She's not really concerned. What's the threat, really? And as we've been talking about fatal pushes already a lot, I think the man lands, the creature lands, did become worse because of fatal push as well.
Yeah, sure.
Not every color had such an easy way of killing a Celestial Colonnade.
No, that's right. Lightning Bolt wouldn't do it. Often, a card like Path to Exile would be one of the only answers as we see this Colonnade come down. Looks like Wraith has also got Gideon Jura. We may see the Planeswalker make an appearance here. It looks like we indeed will. Here he is, the big boy. Going to come round and slap some heads together. And straight up to 8 here.
Also much better against a creature deck. It looks to me like Mark just built his blue-white control deck to prey on creature decks. And this just means his matchup here is...
Look at this, though. What a huge play from Sarah Pedro. Double natural state here. I saw her sandbagging the 1 copy there, but she's managed to completely free up her lands here, and Simon Gertzen all of a sudden.
Yeah, and
the shoe was on the other foot.
Mark decided to tap out of Ghost Quarter, not expecting something like this. He thought he was absolutely safe.
And now Pedro with all the mana in the world. Looks like we've got Ugin in hand.
Now she has to make this turn count. She has to make this turn count because the Ghost Quarter is already on the battlefield.
So we can see huge Oogs come down now. But it's instead, it's Worldbreaker. So Wraith can't really do anything but look at his tapped out lands and his empty hands, and Ghost Quarter is the pick here.
I mean, this makes a ton of sense. It basically guarantees that you will continue casting cards of similar power. I mean, Worldbreaker for blue-white control is also disaster to play against.
Well, I mean, Path to Exile is a nice clean answer, but we do see that sort of come out after board, and Mark Wraith, I mean, looking at these Supreme Verdicts, they're not doing much against Worldbreaker.
No, I think Mark, for example, should have taken out the Supreme Verdicts and kept some
in the paths.
Some
yes,
paths.
For
yes.
sure, absolutely. That would be my assessment as well. 4 mana here. Is it going to be Jace or is it going to be a Supreme Verdict? The Supreme Verdict destroyed target creature here, at least for the time being. And now we'll see Gideon attacking. Okay, well, here's some pressure from Mark Wraith now.
Yeah, play to your outs. Maybe you can somehow find a win if, for example, Sarah only has this Worldbreaker to return.
Follow-up play here for Pedro. Another Collective Brutality.
Does she have an untapped land?
In hand, I can see a Seal of Primordium, and I can see Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and a Ghost Quarter. So Supreme Verdict hits the bin, thanks to that Collective Brutality here. And here we have Ugin the Spirit Dragon, so that is a nice clean answer to Gideon Jura here.
Doesn't work out perfectly because if you -5, there is the Colonnade. Which does mean the game goes a bit longer. I still think the Collective Brutality was probably smart move because Mark had enough time to draw into negate.
So Wraith now does have the Jace in hand, but it looks like we're just going to see the Colonnade get nice and frisky here. Mana Leak the draw for him. It's an ugly one.
Was it Mana Leak or Negate? It was a textless card, but...
Oh, it is Negate. It is Negate, excuse me. Here's one of those player reward cards there.
The joy of commentating is getting to know all these textless and promo versions.
Yes, indeed. Being able to tell the name of a card based on 2.5 millimeters of the top left corner of the card. Pedro draws a power plant here, in addition to the Sealer Primordium that she's been sandbagging for a while. Been impressed by the way she's played this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now it's a little bit evenish, with still the Tron deck having the much better top deck potential.
This is what it comes down to, isn't it, Simon? It's who's going to rip the better cards off the top of their library, and I think the smart money is on Tron.
But Mark has the Jace, so the pressure is now on Sarah to find something.
Back to Wraith now. Checks in with the top of his library. What can he find? Looks like a Glacial Fortress there. And I think we're going to see Jace, the Architect of Thought, come down. Not a bad spot to be in. Okay, well, Wraith, he's got a bit of breathing room. He's got a higher life total. He's got the Architect of Thought. He's also got a Negate in hand, and we're going to see a little fact or fiction type effect here. 1, 2, 3 cards. Irrigated Farmland, Island, and a Snapcaster Mage. Not a hard split to make here, Simon.
No, the Farmland is another card, is an extra card, so that's something. It's not a bad split. Well, it's a bad outcome, but also this is not a full fact or fiction, so what do you expect?
So Wraith takes the 2 cards and puts the other 2 cards below the library here. Snapcaster Mage at an all-time high. And Pedro quickly having a look at what she's going to have to play around now that this Snapcaster Mage is in hand. Negate from Mark Wraith. Is he sniffing at a little stream light at the end of the tunnel here?
I don't think so. If you want to keep using the Jace, you need to plus it first to keep it around.
Mm-hmm.
The Ghost Quarter will always threaten to take out the Colonnade, so Pedro is only on a clock if you run out your Snapcaster Mage. And as the Tron player, I would feel very comfortable here. Worldbreaker is coming back.
That is the other thing to remember, of course. There is a Worldbreaker in the bin for Pedro, which looks like she's happy to snag back into her hand here. So a lot of action coming from her side of the table here. Wraith, head in hand. Pedro floats squillion billion mana here, and down comes Worldbreaker once again. Power Plant still in hand for her, and Celestial Colonnade is going to eat the dirt as well.
I think she could have played the land before casting the Worldbreaker. Yeah, not quite sure why.
Play around Mana Leak.
Yeah. On the other hand, this exchange is ultimately going to benefit you. Stony
Silence off the top here for Mark Wraith. Not the card he wants to see at this late juncture. Glacial Fortress the play.
Is Mark not playing Ancestral Vision?
Ancestral Vision isn't a piece of technology that's been picked up by the blue-white decks in earnest recently, Simon?
So that makes his matchup even worse, right?
Yeah.
It's basically, okay, he's saying, I don't really want to go into the long game. I just want to be an honest control deck, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, we see Serum Visions has really sort of taken over that spot that Visions... I mean, people experimented with Visions for quite a while, but it never really found a home. Right now, Pedro with a tricky split here. What are you looking at on, Simon?
You have to remember that the cards go on the bottom of the library, so you don't get extra value from Think Twice. Detention Sphere, I think, is a powerful card in the current board state, but there's already the what is it called? Sigil?
The seal of Primordium.
The seal is already waiting, so you don't really get anything from it. I would, for this reason, I would actually give Mark the choice between Detention Sphere and land, or the Think Twice. It's a minor difference, but
well, Wraith picks up the Think Twice in addition to that land, and as you mentioned, Pedro certainly came very prepared to deal with artifacts, deal with enchantments, Seal of Primordium, in addition to the 2 copies of Nature's Claim we saw snapped off earlier. And Stony Silence comes down to Wraith. Pedro saying, "Yep, sure, okay, you got me." All right.
Is Mark hoping that she just uses the seal? That's how it looks like.
Yeah, baiting it out, perhaps. Sylvan scrying at the top of Pedro's library. In addition to, is that a card? Another card she's holding very close to her chest as Worldbreaker comes in for 5.
Did Mark make his land drop? I thought he was supposed to be up to 7 mana, but maybe I miscounted.
And Sylvan scrying now for Pedro. No, Mark Wraith didn't play a land last turn. He's been on 6 lands since having cast that Jace, Architect of Thought.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And we're going to see a negate cast to take care of the Sylvan scrying.
That's very aggressive.
Very aggressive deployment of negate, and I bet he's looking at his hand now and thinking, oopsie doopsie, because here comes Khan Liberated. The dog has been let off the chain, ladies and gentlemen, and Khan's ready to come and start eating Mark Wraith's hand. In response, think twice. Maybe draws a card he's not too unhappy to bin here in the face of Khan Liberated.
When Eye of Ugin was still legal, it was actually even more difficult to win this matchup because a tutor for Eye of Ugin would also spell Doom.
Yeah.
So you even had to counter all these expedition maps and Sylvan Scryings in the late game. Here in this case, I think Pedro just wanted to make sure that she wasn't being cut off from green and black mana, if you're asking me.
Well, in any case, he's being punished for that very aggressive deployment of the negate as he draws a Jace, plays a Ghost Quarter. Now, right now, a Ghost Quarter does take Pedro off Tron. But with Khan Liberated on the battlefield here, it's still going to be very difficult for Wraith to get back into it. Path to Exile, Plains, and a third card in the form of an island. Nice easy split here. Wraith snags the Plains. That's at least going to take care of the Worldbreaker.
The path, yes.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. The path. Plains and island going below decks.
This is a start. The issue I see here is if you now Ghost Quarter the Urza's Tower, for example, Pedro can just hardcast her spells. It's not really.
No, we're getting to the point now where, yes, this is the Tron side of it, the squillion mana that you can generate a turn is becoming less and less relevant as we get into the late game because, it's possible to cast these 7 drops, these 8 drops, whatever else, just by having that number of lands in play. So,
because going from 12 mana to 8 is not really a big deal.
No, it's not the hugest hit in the world, that's true. So Wraith now demonstrating a very unorthodox shuffling technique here. And it's back to Pedro. What has she found off the top of her library here? With an active Khan, she's certainly in a good position. Away goes Jace, Architect of Thought. Khan Liberated. He's a hungry, hungry hippo, and he's eating up everything that Mark Wraith has to offer here.
That would be fun to restart with a Jace in play.
That would be actually pretty decent. How many times have you seen Khan Liberated restart the game?
On coverage or
just ever?
Playing myself?
Yeah.
On Magic Online, I certainly did it a few times, just because.
Of course, if you can, exactly. If they're at 3 and you've got a bolt in hand, you still restart. Of course you do. Here's Snapcaster Mage now.
Even if it's just a land, right?
And a Wall of Omens.
For the value.
Yeah, for sure. Wall of Omens going to cycle. Snapcaster Mage going after Khan. He's down to 5. And Wraith, after having drawn a card off Wall of Omens, doesn't seem to have too much else to bring to the party here. And Sarah Pedro, she's cool, calm, collected. She knows that she's in the driver's seat here. Mark Wraith not meaning to tap that Glacial Fortress. It's not a Tectonic Edge. It's brought to bear. It is, of course, a Ghost Quarter. The favoured piece of technology right now. Interesting sort of tension between Ghost Quarter and Tectonic Edge. Some decks are electing to play both, but I think Ghost Quarter is just in a much better spot.
Yeah, you need the early interaction. If you think of cards like Inkmoth Nexus, you can't really afford to hope that your Affinity opponent plays 4 lands.
And Supreme Verdict off the top here for Mark Wraith. That is the third one he's left in his deck after sideboarding, and a very perplexing decision here. Expedition map now.
I think Pedro failed to find from that last Ghost Quarter.
Yes.
So
yes.
she's out of basics.
Yeah.
Not a huge deal.
And this is the power of Ghost Quarter as well, especially after board. If you've got something like Crucible of Worlds, it just turns into Strip Mine. And there are so many decks in Modern, Simon, that skimp on basic lands. Many of them just playing 1, 2, maybe 3.
Absolutely, yes. And then, of course, it also has other uses, like we saw against Manlands, or you will see sometimes even against Scapeshift. You can maybe destroy a Valakut.
Yeah, Sniper Valakut or something like that. Sarah Pedro goes searching, finds an Urza's Mine, thanks to an expedition map.
She wants to just make sure that she has the Tron. I don't think that's really important.
No. Just a bit of housekeeping here.
I think I would have kept that seal against potential detention spheres from off the top. And that's one thing I wanted to mention about the detention sphere.
Go on.
Mark is playing a really nice piece of removal. I like detention sphere. I think it's a great design. But against a deck that's playing Karns and Ugins, you're basically guaranteed that the threats are going to come back.
Here's a nice one. Sphinx's Revelation for 3, getting those flashbacks to 2014. What a card this is. What a card this is.
Almost like Ancestral Vision.
Basically Ancestral Recall. It's even better. Gains your life. Draw 3 cards for Mark Wraith. We can see Negate, I can see a Spreading Seas, and I can see a Celestial Colonnade. All red hot hits here against the Tron deck. Okay. But not so much when Khan is already ripping your hand apart.
The problem with the Colonnade is that the Ghost Quarter is already waiting for it.
That is true. And also, Khan can also just chomp it up.
Karn is the main problem.
Yep, for sure. Well, here's the second one.
That's very aggressive.
That's very aggressive deployment of Khan, Khan being liberated for the second time. Obviously wanting to eat up the contents of Wraith's hand even further. Now he's got a difficult decision to make.
I wouldn't count on this Colonnade. I would keep the Spreading Seas because at least it draws you deeper into your deck.
Well, Mark Wraith disagrees with Simon Gertzen. He's going to chuck away that Spreading Seas and keep the Colonnade, which, as you said, has 2 onboard answers from the hands of Sarah Pedro in the form of Ghost Quarter and, of course, the Khan, which gets ticked down to 8. And another Stony Silence here for Mark Wraith after the first one taken care of by the Seal of Primordium.
Maybe another reason not to destroy the first one, to blank future ones.
Walking Ballista off the top for Sarah Pedro.
Wow, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, this is going to be... This might turn the game around a corner here, because I was about to say we are heading into the very, very late stages. We don't see Modern. This is not a typical Modern matchup in the sense that it's going up for a very, very long time indeed.
No, we should be on our break right now.
Yes, we should be sipping a cup of tea and enjoying all the sights that this part of the world has to offer. But instead, we're watching these guys go at it late in the round here between Tron and Blue-White Control. It's exactly what you'd expect between these two decks.
So Pedro realized that she can't activate the Walking Ballista with Stony Silence on the battlefield. It's not really necessary to exile the Stony Silence this turn, though.
So Walking Ballista for 7 here.
I think I would have preferred to exile the Colonnade and then just play a 7/7 Ballista. Okay, you cannot activate it for 1 turn, which means the top deck path to exile is a problem. But now, if the Colonnade gets activated, do you really shoot it down, or do you accept that your current goes to 1?
Serum Visions, one of the cards that Mark Wraith took out of his deck, at least in some quantities here, as we see him scry 2.
That's just a cardinal sin, right? We don't approve of taking out Serum Visions.
Certainly not an orthodox decision is the way that I would put that there. Mark Wraith thinking about those, but I want to come back to what you mentioned before, Zimon, here, because what Pedro has opened herself up to here is an attack from the Celestial Colonnade in addition to that Snapcaster Mage. After having replaced her Khan with another one, this one can now bite the dust, in theory at least. I mean, that Ghost Quarter's been kept up to take care of the Colonnade, but all the same, this is an aggressive line taken by Pedro here.
Yes, and it's the second aggressive decision.
Yeah.
After playing that replacement Karn, now exiling the Stony Silence, I think a turn early. But she has opened the Ghost Quarter. I thought she tapped out of
No, the Ghost Quarter's still up.
In this case, okay, she wasn't really in any danger.
No,
I guess.
So now Pedro, 7/7 Walking Ballista, active Khan.
That should be enough to win the game. Now she has a clock. she can ping the Snapcaster Mage so that it doesn't get to chump block.
Uh-huh.
And then, okay, if the wall chump blocks, that's fine.
I mean, that's happening. That's going to happen anyway. That's exactly what Wall of Omen says. 1 and a white, draw a card, gain 3 to 6 life.
Yeah, Wall of Omen used to be a really good constructed card.
Well, we're going to see another permanent exiled here, thanks to Khan Liberated.
I played it in Block Constructed.
Yeah?
Pro Tour...
Berlin?
Puerto Rico.
Okay.
San Juan.
Check this out. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, more permanents being exiled. Mark Wraith really not being allowed to have too much fun here as Pedro continues to eat up everything that he has. Both of them going away. And the Ceaseless Hunger, the Walking Ballista, and Khan Liberator, these huge colourless threats here.
But is he having fun yet?
Absolutely doing the number as we see this 8/8 Walking Ballista get in and slap Mark Wraith up and down the battlefield. Very unfortunate showing for the blue-white deck here. Poised to make a run at this tournament, this deck is, but not so when it's faced up against Tron in the early stages. A concession from Mark Wraith, really, you would have to say, Simon Goetzen, not a surprise for anyone.
That's the look of a defeated man.
Yes, indeed. Certainly not the matchup he wanted to face, but full credit to Sarah Pedro, really capitalising on the opportunity there to turn the screws in her opponent, and she's picked up a win in round number 1. Well done indeed to her. My friends, on the other side of this, more magic coming your way from GP Birmingham. Plenty more action from the modern format to showcase for you. So stick around, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few moments.